Hey, it's been so long. Hi, I'm Angelica Coco. I create content on self-development, travel and food. If you're an existing subscriber, welcome back to my channel. And of course, if you're new here, I hope by the end of you watching this video, you will decide to subscribe to this beautifully evolving community. So today we're going to be talking about how deleting social media changed my life. It's been so long since I last made a video, so I would like to say first and foremost that I have genuinely missed all of you, and I've honestly been looking forward to coming back and making I've honestly been looking forward to coming back and making more content. I think time away has reminded me how much I do enjoy content creating, and I love adding value in any way possible. So today, as we are going to be discussing how deleting social media changed my life, I would like to add a very quick disclaimer that I know everyone's experience with social media is different. Some would say it's positive, others would say it's negative, or a mixture of both. But I hope by the end of you watching this video, it will encourage you to maybe evaluate your own relationship with social media and possibly redefine it so you can become more intentional with your time and what you choose to give focus to. Let me know if any of you relate to this, but being someone who has grown up with social media, I realize how it has been a big part of my life, whether that's connecting to the people we know or connecting to the world around us. Social media has always had a presence in our life in some capacity. It almost seems a bit impossible to escape, especially as it is more resourceful. So I first had social media when I was 12 years old, and I think for a lot of people around my age group, that age is very common. But I remember being so fascinated by it because before I had my own social media account, my eldest brother used to let me go on his for fun and spam his friends with lols and MSN emojis. And then when I finally got around to having my own social media account, I remember I was given parental supervision. And although the type of content I was exposed to back then isn't as vast as it is today, I realised it's so important for a responsible adult to safeguard a child if they want to be online. Back then, the social media platforms that existed were MSN, Bebo, MySpace. I, of course, had MSN and Bebo, and the only purpose it served was for communication. But that was short lived because there's not much to communicate at 12 years old. Fast forward to today, social media is more than just about communicating. It's a means of sharing your life and what goes on within it. And in a lot of ways, this does have benefits, but on the other hand, it doesn't, because we live in a generation where it's so easy to exploit yourself and your problems. I just feel like there appears to be no boundaries whatsoever with the type of content that is both shared and consumed online. We're constantly bombarded by lots of information. It almost becomes brainwashing. And the reason why I actually say that is because when I look back at my own experience using social media as a teenager, I've learned that one, you're not only impressionable at a young age, but two, it skews your perception of reality. Because when you're constantly shown one type of content, one type of message, it compels you to believe one type of narrative. In my previous video where I open up about my self-love journey, I obviously spoke about how growing up I was quite self-critical, and when I look back at my experience using social media as a teenage girl, I realised it was a very triggering place for me, unfortunately. While I've obviously learned to redefine my relationship with social media so I can have a better experience using it as an adult, as a teenage girl, it just made it harder to accept myself because I suppose there was always a certain type of perfection my younger self never saw herself in. And you know what's really interesting is that even till this day, I know that there are people, young, old, male, female, that can relate to this. Whether that's seeing lots of different lifestyles or ways of living, it just takes social media to convince you that everyone else's life is better than your own. So before taking my most recent social media break, I remember when I first did this, and it was leading up to my GCSEs and I was in high school. And for those of you that don't know what GCSEs are, it stands for General Certificate Secondary Education, and it's taken in a range of subjects in year 11 across the UK. So as you imagine, these exams were super important because they were not only exams that I was going to do once in my life, but they also determined what I would study for A-level. And back then I wanted to do subjects like biology, chemistry, sociology, psychology, but in the end I changed it to sociology, religious philosophy, English literature and biology. But as you would imagine, it was my responsibility to eliminate distractions. So that meant cutting out social media. And I remember I temporarily deactivated my Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and boy, oh boy, what a difference it made to not only my state of mind, but to my productivity levels. Suddenly, the days felt longer, and the hours I spent endlessly scrolling on my phone were now obviously occupied by revision. During the time I was also off social media, it also taught me the true meaning of being present. And at the age of 16, it almost felt like enlightenment because I was able to learn to make the most of where I was and who I was with. So besides from revising and studying, I dedicated more time bonding with my family and friends face to face without the distraction of my phone and maybe feeling inclined to capture the moment and post it online somewhere. But as you would imagine, these are some of the early benefits I gained from deleting social media. And even till this day, I put it into practice because whenever I've had goals that require 100% focus, deleting social media has always benefited me. So I remember when I took my longest social media break, and it was during the pandemic, and I remember life back then was so uncertain. I was in my final year at university, and I remember thinking, in order to process this new reality at my own pace, I need to delete social media. And looking back now, I've learned that with social media, you don't always get to choose what type of content you digest. And in a lot of ways, this does play a positive role in obviously raising awareness and creating solidarity. But on the other hand, when you're constantly shown negative news, negative updates, you're only going to have quite a pessimistic outlook on life. So I think learning to take control over the information we read and see is a great way to reclaim our sense of peace. And it also plays a key part in how we take care of our health and well-being. Sometimes we forget how much of a distraction social media is because we become so invested in other people's lives and what they're doing. We end up neglecting ourselves and our own happiness. And I think my most recent social media break reminded me of the importance of investing in myself. And I think the more time you take to focus on your goals and your own happiness, you will find there's a total mind shift that takes place by default. You become more aware of how you spend your time and what you do. And because of this, the very practices you put in place that make up your daily routine make all the difference in whether you're successful or not in changing your life, essentially. So some of the things that I reinforced in my life while I was off social media was things like journaling, reading the Bible, spending more time building a stronger relationship with God. And I think these few examples I'm giving you right now have played a fundamental part in my journey and growth. One thing I have observed about social media, being off social media, is that it's so idolized in our culture. And for some, it's done so unconsciously, but we place it at the center of our existence and make it that core part of our identity. And the deeper I've looked into my faith and being a Christian, I realize we all fall short in doing this, including myself. And some of the things that we can place emphasis on is things like vanity, popularity, validation. But it's these things driven by the use of social media that cause many of our internal conflicts. I think choosing to be selective over the type of content we view not only puts us in a better place to have control, but to expose ourselves to content that will help inspire and develop us. And thanks to content creating, I've been able to connect with like-minded communities and form friendships with people that relate to me. But my whole point is, however you decide to redefine your relationship with social media, I hope by you watching this video, it will provide you with some form of guidance and insight. If you have, of course, enjoyed listening to me, make sure to smash that like button, as I would appreciate it. And also subscribe, because we're all on the journey to becoming the best version of ourselves together.